First, it was Dracula, then Creature from the Black Lagoon. Now it's the Bride of Frankenstein. Hi, I'm Irene, and this is the final watercolor portrait inspired by classic monsters from Universal Studios. It all started because I'd gotten into the board game HORRIFIED. That game has players working cooperatively to defeat the monsters terrorizing a village. Of all the monstrous characters, Frankenstein and the Bride are unique in both play mechanics and end goals. For starters, they share one monster card, since, as a couple, you can't invite one without the other. That said, they move and act separately. The player's goal isn't to slay them, but rather to keep them apart while helping them connect to their humanity. That's done through using certain items to turn up their humanity dials. Once that's achieved, they can meet, not attack each other, and run off into the sunset, leaving the village and its residents alone. For me, that makes those two very interesting to have in play, along with one or two of the other monsters. If you've watched the two previous videos, this all probably looks familiar. The border rulings, the lettering style, the order of the process. Where it diverges is the selected character and the paint colors. It might interest you to know that the Bride concept sketch was the first one I drew, and it's the one that best displays the mood and style I was going for. For the whole series, I mean, to varying levels of success. So this piece, in the end, is my favorite of the bunch. For that reason, yes, but also because I think it's the best executed. We actually recently watched Bride of Frankenstein. That's right, 1935. It was late at night, but I at least managed to stay awake for the whole 75 minutes, which was a good thing considering they didn't reveal the bride until the final 10 minutes. There was an early highlight, the creature tossing a man into a ditch, that fueled my determination to see it through. Oh, it's going to be like that, is it? Well, all right. If you're looking for atmosphere, it definitely has that. I kept getting distracted, though, because I had never realized how much of Young Frankenstein is from this movie. Less old and less black and white is Frankenstein, the True Story. It aired on television in 1973. I was like 6 at the time, but bits and pieces of it stuck in my head. So the other night I rewatched it. It wasn't as good as my vague memories made it out to be. In fact, in some ways it comes across as clumsily made, but the shocking moments are still there. The crawling disembodied hand, the creature jumping off a cliff, the female creature having her head torn off at a ball, and Victor discovering his wife's frozen body in the Arctic. It's strange that nobody ever talks about that movie. It's also amusing because the cast consisted of many well-known actors of the time, but I expect most people now would struggle to name any of them. Jane Seymour sticks out the most to me, but that might be because her character was beheaded twice. Perhaps I should explain that Jane Seymour has worked in films and television for decades. Still does, as far as I know. She was a Bond girl in Live and Let Die, an Arabian princess in Sinbad and the Eye of the Tiger, and an Edwardian-era actress in Somewhere in Time. For TV work, she's known for her roles in Battlestar Galactica, Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman, and numerous made-for-television movies. I was aware of Dr. Quinn at the time, but never watched it. Uh, the 1800s American West setting just didn't appeal to 20-something me. Or maybe I still saw her as the cruel and wicked Kathy from the 1981 TV miniseries East of Eden. You know, she was probably the best thing about that version, and Seymour did win a Golden Globe for the role. Something that tickles me is the fact that both Bruce Boxleitner and Hart Bochner were in it. Those are two actors who I thought, for a long time, were the same person. Pretty sure they've never been seen on screen at the same time. It's been a while since my last viewing, but I think a couple of the major characters were poorly cast. So I prefer the 1955 version with James Dean. Maybe you've seen that one. You know what? The people who leave feedback in the comment section, you're awesome. Seriously, whether it's advice, a correction, a personal experience, or just a simple hi, it makes my day. Since I'm on the subject, a big thank you to those who've supported Inkworks. If you clicked on that thumbs up button, you've done this channel a favor. Of course, the same goes for all the lovely people who've subscribed. And to those who've gone above and beyond, you know who you are. Much appreciation from me and producer Mike. Once again, I used the wet on wet technique for the letters, tails, I guess you'd call them. The colors for this piece were carmine, mauve, and Prussian blue, all from Da Vinci's Autumn watercolor set. I'm really glad I chose to limit the palette at the very start, because it's cool how each character is identifiable through those combinations. I could have used a round brush for the top letters, but the dagger did very well at dragging and fading the paints. Would a round brush have worked as well? I doubt it. This bride portrait was intended to be more cool in tone, but in the early stages I went too far into purple, so I switched tack by going lighter on mauve and carmine and heavier on Prussian blue. I guess that phrase, switch or change tack, isn't as common these days. Some people assume tack is short for tactic, but that's not the case. Tack is a nautical term that refers to adjusting the sails and repositioning the boat. That's done to take better advantage of winds. So to change tack is to approach a situation from a different and hopefully more effective angle. So, yeah, I guess broadly speaking, it's basically the same as tactic. I just really needed to sneak in some pedantry. For the past week, I felt the beginnings of autumn, falling foliage, a chill in the air, and the delightful aromas of apples and pumpkins. That last is because we've surrounded ourselves with seasonal air fresheners, candles, and sweet treats. The theme park of my dreams would be autumn all the time, where one could stroll down Trick-or-Treat Street, grab a bag of caramel corn, and wash it down with hot apple cider, $12.99 when purchased with a reusable collectible tumbler. Hey, you need something to fuel all of that door knocking, because you have to save the Halloween candy for sustenance while roaming Dark's Pandemonium Carnival. After narrowly escaping the Carousel of Time and House of Mirrors with your soul intact, it's off to Vardo Village for werewolf stories round the campfire and dire warnings from the fortune-teller's wagon. I can see it all in my head, except for how to maintain fall weather conditions during winter, spring, and summer, that is. Details, schmeetails. This horrified series of monster portraits has reminded me of some old childhood viewing. The Mad Monster Party was a movie I'd seen several times as a kid because they kept showing it on TV. So, some years ago, I convinced producer Mike to purchase it on DVD. Well, soon afterward, I apologized for that because it was rather tedious and not quite as fun as I'd remembered. I even told him to stop me when, a couple of years from now, I'll likely bring it up again, saying, "Surely it wasn't that bad. Let's give it another go." The Mad Monster Party is a Rankin Bass stop-motion production from 1967, and I was overly harsh just now. There's a certain amount of charm to the thing, which makes me wonder why it was never staged as a musical. The movie does include a half-dozen songs, after all. It simply needs a couple of new showstoppers, and maybe Bernadette Peters and Hugh Jackman. Sorry, channeling Oliver Putnam there. Wait, not sorry. There's nothing wrong with having big dreams, and some of us could use some dazzle in our lives. Am I right? Another monster-filled movie I watched in my youth was Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein from 1948. On one hand, it's kinda cool to see all of the classic Universal monsters appear in a comedy together, all except the creature from the Black Lagoon. That film hadn't been made yet. On the other hand, Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein is not a good movie. For the most part, the monsters are the butt of the jokes. So, outside of a few amusing bits between Bud and Lou, the result comes across as sorta sad and unnecessary. For those who've never heard of Bud Abbott and Lou Costello, just look up Who's On First. That comedy routine was made famous by the duo when they performed it on a national radio program in the 1930s. A later video recording from either the 40s or the 50s recently made the rounds on YouTube's reaction channels. I had nearly forgotten all about it, so it's amusing to see it dredged up and discovered by younger generations. A more recent monster mashup I can watch over and over again is the 2004 movie Van Helsing. It's from the same filmmaker who made The Mummy back in 1999. Van Helsing isn't as good, in my opinion, but it's entertaining and action-packed. I can't picture anyone falling asleep to it. Anyone besides producer Mike, that is. That's right. On our first date together, we went back to my place, poured the wine, dimmed the lamps, and 20 minutes into the movie, producer Mike was out like a light. I, of course, was riveted, mainly because the dude playing the werewolf was smoking, but also because Kate Beckinsale girl crush. I mean, who wouldn't experience a bit of outfit envy? She rocked the peasant blouse, leather corset, and thigh-high boots combo. Then she went and wore the shit out of all that hair. Badass vampire or badass vampire hunter. That woman could do it all. So I've already touched on the seasonal changes, but I'm not yet done with oversharing. We've shut off the fans and closed the windows. Yes, that was expected. But I guess I forgot that squirrels are very active during fall. You know, all that fattening up and preparing for winter stuff. Because I was surprised, even a little alarmed, to see not one, but 5 squirrels roaming our yard this morning, gathering, eating, and hiding the scant nuts I'd tossed out. Seriously, I had visions of a Hitchcockian when animals attack scenario, complete with terrified residents fleeing the city. All the while, with fluffy tails a-twitching, those mini menaces would quietly watch and nibble. We just had one of producer Mike's daughters visiting with us. All three of them live in another state, but only one was able to wrangle time off for an end of summer vacation. We did the usual activities: chatting, eating, board gaming, shopping, eating, and we tried a new to us restaurant, Moshi Ramen Bar in downtown Tacoma. Look, we don't make a habit of eating out, so when we receive gift cards for Christmas, we save them for special occasions like this. Thank you, Mike's family. At Moshi, we shared a couple of appetizer plates, karaage and takoyaki. Both were delicious. Karaage is Japanese fried chicken, or JFC, I guess. Usually, it's bite-sized pieces of skin-on, boneless chicken thighs that have been marinated in a mixture of soy sauce, mirin, garlic, and ginger, then dredged in potato starch and deep-fried. The marinade makes it tasty, but there's often a dipping sauce provided as well. Moshi's version apparently uses rice flour rather than potato starch. It was served on a bed of shredded cabbage and beni shoga with a spicy mayo on the side. Sorry, I didn't intend to make this a glossary of Japanese culinary terms, but there are probably people scratching their heads over things like beni shoga. That's a type of pickled ginger. Lots of people know about gari, the sweet pink sushi ginger, but beni shoga is red and salty. Actually, my mother used lots of fresh ginger, but beni shoga was the only pickled ginger she used. So I wasn't even aware of gari until well into adulthood. Takoyaki is a piece of octopus meat inside a ball of fried batter and flavored with green onions, shaved bonito flakes, beni shoga, and drizzled with a brown sauce and mayo. I'm not a fan of the slightly gooey inside, but the outstanding flavors make that a non-issue. If I get to Moshi again, I'd totally order both karaage and takoyaki again. I wasn't as in love with my okonomiyaki entree. Look, it was yummy and I ate half of it there, but it was a bit heavy for me, and the flavors were similar to those in the takoyaki. That sounds like an odd complaint. Too much flavor! But after indulging in those appetizers, I really should have ordered something lighter. So that was my bad. Overall, it was a great experience, and a lot of it was due to the staff. Everyone we interacted with was friendly and super chill. Even when Mike's daughter had to borrow one of their back tables for a work-related phone meeting. These days, it's a challenge to keep up with the young people in my life, so I declined to join in on several outings, which is fine since I got to relax at home while they wore themselves out gallivanting. Producer Mike was thoughtful, though, and always brought back a treat for me. During this visit, we also got to have several game nights: Villainous, Horrified, Hocus Pocus, and Cards Against Humanity Family Edition. Good times. Although, in my opinion, Princeton's Neptune brushes are best suited for loose painting, I was still able to get nice details with the number 2 round. I'm happy to share these paintings with you. Sometimes when a bug strikes, you just gotta run with it, even if your first instinct is to run away. So thanks for indulging me on this horrific journey. Until next time, remember, everything in moderation. That goes for scary stories, gallivanting, and, though it pains me to say it, even mayonnaise. And stay artsy, my friends.